Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a little while since I've done a baking video for you, but today I would like to share one of my family's ultimate favorite recipes. It is Shoo Fly Pie, also known as molasses crumb pie. Now, this is a big item up around Pennsylvania Dutch country and the Amish, and my grandmothers and my mom have made it, and it's just always been a hit. So I'm going to share that recipe with you today. So first we'll get started by having 4 cups of flour and 2 cups of sugar. Put this into a bowl along with 1 cup of melted either butter, margarine, plant-based butter. You can even use shortening if you like to. As for me, I'm just using margarine because I want to make it dairy-free today. So putting that in there, you take a fork and you just mix it all together. Now, my grandmother, she made this recipe right up until she passed away, really. She was 93 when she passed, and we would go over to her house a few years before she passed, and she'd be over there just mixing up these crumbs. And we'd say, "Where's your recipe?" And she'd say, "I don't need a recipe. I know exactly how it's supposed to be." And her crumb pies were delicious. She would make them for all kinds of fundraisers and festivals. You know, she would make possibly a dozen in a day, big 9-inch pies. And people just absolutely love them. Okay, so stir it up real good, turn it into a crumb mixture. Okay, so we're back. We have our crumb mixture and our 1 cup of crumbs set aside. Next, we'll be doing 1 cup of molasses. I have 1 cup right here. You can buy whichever brand you like. The most common one is the Grandma's molasses. That's what I'm using right now. And of course, if you've ever worked with molasses, you know how sticky it is. So you need to get a spatula or something to get it out of there. Okay. So that is pretty good. Now, what you're going to need is 2 cups of boiling water. And I already have my water over here. It just got finished right before I started. So I'm going to put 2 cups of that in. Oh. Okay. I'm going to pour that right in with the molasses. Now we'll get a wooden spoon and start to stir that all together. But before we start that, we're going to go and put 1 teaspoon of baking soda in with this. It'll fizz up a little bit in there. Slowly stir that so it's all mixed. Okay, so we're back. This is all ready. We're going to slowly add it to our crumb mixture. First of all, though, we want to get our oven going at 350. And also important, I will show you when I put them in, sometimes these kind of spill out over the edges a little bit when they bake up. So you want to make sure you put some foil underneath on the rack below just so you don't have a mess in your oven. Okay. Let me take the fork out. Okay. Now this, you will see, will be kind of lumpy as you start stirring it, but that's just kind of how the mixture is. I'll show you near the end then about how smooth it should look. And of course, if you want to, you could always turn your mixer on and put it underneath your mixers too. And get it smoother. If you want, you can use your mixer. You just stir it up. Unless I'm making a lot of them, then my arm's going to get tired. Although my grandmother, she never used her mixer. She would make, I could say 10 or 12 in a day, and 90 some years old, and she would just stir it up with her spoon. Okay, so this is getting to be about the consistency. It's a little lumpy yet. I'll stir it a little bit longer. Now I want to say this recipe, you don't have to make it with butter. So this actually can be a vegan recipe. I've also made it with gluten-free flour before. It turns out okay. I liked it. It had a good flavor, but it is a lot gooier. And so if you're looking for that more gooey consistency and you want to try the gluten-free flour, by all means, go ahead. This time I'm making it, though, for a fair that's coming up tomorrow. And I didn't really want to make it gluten-free just because I wanted people to actually taste it as it's intended to be. And in the future, maybe I'll make some gluten-free when I do it. But for this time, I just wanted it to be a regular one. So I'm sure a lot of people down here in the South have heard of it, but they've never tried it before. So I'd like them to truly experience what it tastes like. Okay, now I already have my 2 pie crusts prepared over there. I will link that YouTube recipe that I did down below in the description. As always, this recipe will be on there as well down in the description. But yes, I always make my pie crust homemade. I don't care for the store-bought ones. They seem to have an aftertaste to them. They just kind of taste synthetic. It's a really simple pie crust recipe that I kind of used, a recipe that my grandmother had, as well as one of my neighbors, and kind of perfected that and came up with that recipe. All right, so this I think is about as smooth as it's going to get, and you'll see it still is a bit lumpy, but that's okay. It will bake and it'll be all good. Okay, it's over here. Okay, so it's all ready to pour them into the pie crust. One important thing my grandmother always told me was to not rush it when you're pouring it in. In other words, don't take it and just kind of dump it in. It doesn't usually turn out as well. That was one of her secrets. So just take your time with it and either use a 1 cup measuring cup or a ladle and just gently place it into the pie crust. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it kind of affects the baking process or something. I'm not sure, but it always worked for her. So then just try to split it up evenly, because like I say, this mix is a big mix, and it will make 2 9-inch pie crusts. So of course, if you're going to use 8-inch, just know you're going to have a little extra batter left. And this recipe that I'm making right here, this is actually just molasses cake is all it is. So if you don't want the crust, you could always just make this, put it in a 9x13 pan and just bake it up as a cake. Just make sure you spray the bottom of the pan so it doesn't stick. But yeah, you can always just make it like that. And some people, I'm personally, I'm not crazy about pie crust myself. So I would make it like that too, or make it into maybe muffins or something. But for some reason, this is one kind of pie that I do really like the crust with it. I mean, I love the molasses cake too, but the pie is just, it's really, really good with that crust. I don't know if it's just like a texture thing with it or what, but it is good. Okay, just gonna put the rest of that in there. It looks pretty even. And now, my favorite part of all of it are the crumbs. Just get a spoon here and spoon that out. Okay. I'll break them up a little bit. They've been sitting for a few minutes, so they get a little dry. Okay, so maybe I'll just use my fingers. Just sprinkle them right on the top there. And you will see they're kind of sinking down in, but They'll be okay when you bake. So see how it turns out. And this recipe, I will say, it is not a sweet recipe. I mean, we only had 2 cups of sugar for both of these pies, so just 1 cup of sugar in each. However, what makes it a little bit sweeter, of course, is the molasses. Now, some people don't really care for that because they don't feel as though molasses is very sweet. But that's what makes this recipe such a great breakfast recipe. With a nice cup of coffee or tea, it's not too sweet in the morning. So that was a really popular thing up from where I'm from in Pennsylvania, was to have something like this for breakfast in the morning. Just not too much sugar, just the right amount. Plus molasses is really good for you. And so a whole cup, so half a cup of molasses in each pie. Pretty good, healthy amount. All right, there you go. 2 nice even pies. We'll just wait for the oven to get up to 350 and put them in. Okay, so the oven is up to temperature. We'll be putting these pies in the oven. I'm going to put them on the second rack from the bottom, and there's the foil underneath just in case anything spills out over, which most of the time a little bit does spill out over, so it's best just to be safe rather than sorry mess up your oven. Okay, there you go. Put these in, set the timer for 40 to 45 minutes, and check them with a toothpick. And okay, so I just checked the pies and they're done. This one, I guess I didn't put quite as much of the filling in it, so that one took only about 55 minutes to bake. But this one down here, I must have put quite a bit more in, and it took about 1 hour and 10 minutes to bake. So I just keep checking it every 5 minutes, but it's finally done. Take that out. And neither one of them spilled out in the oven, so that was good. But a 9-inch pie plate is what I would recommend for these. Also, I don't think I mentioned it before, but these pie crusts were unbaked pie crusts. And that's very important because, of course, you don't want the crust to get too dark. You want the cake mix to actually mix, kind of, not really mix into it, but you kind of want the cake mix to bake with it so that it kind of sticks together with it, and the crust doesn't get too dark. So yeah, again, both of these pie crusts were unbaked. So therefore that one had a little bit less, and it took about 55 minutes, and this one had a little bit more of the cake mix in, so it took about 1 hour and 5 minutes. So we will let these cool, and then we'll cut them, and I'll show you what they look like. Hello everyone, and here we are back with our finished piece of Shoo Fly Pie, also known as molasses crumb pie. You can see that the crumbs sometimes don't exactly get mixed up as well as what you might want them to be, but you put the crumbs on the top too, so it just adds into it and adds a little bit of crunch and texture to it. It is so good. I truly hope you enjoy this recipe as much as my family always enjoyed this recipe. It's simple, easy to make, just a few ingredients, and you've got yourself a classic. So thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making this video and sharing this recipe. Until next time, everyone, stay well.